Hello, all, and welcome to the round table. We are back, I think. How's everybody doing? Mark, Jeff?
Doing fine.
Pretty good.
Enjoying some my
Uh-oh. Mark cut out.
We lost Mark.
All right. So, without too much ado here, since Jeff picked out the documentary, I'll let him introduce it, and then we'll kind of go around, give one positive, and then we'll go one negative, and then we'll kind of go into a discussion, and then we'll wrap it up. So, Jeff, introduce us to what we're going to be looking at today.
Well, Robert and Mark both picked some documentaries that we looked at the past few weeks, and it was my turn. So I'm going, what should I pick? What should I pick? I've been looking through these documentaries. I having trouble finding one, and I almost picked one on Ronald Reagan, but then I thought, no, let's do something a little bit different, maybe from the same time frame. So I picked one on the Falkland War. Why did the Falkland Wars happen? The Untold Story. It was on the timeline on YouTube. And this was a documentary that was produced about 5 years after the Falkland War. And yeah, so it just goes into the why it happened, and then all the events that took place during the major events during the war itself and the result of it. So that's what we covered.
Okay, and give us one positive, and then we'll go to Mark.
One positive is I loved how this documentary was able to pull in people from both sides of the war. In fact, lots of times you would get points in the documentary where they would be interviewing one person from one side, and in the very same event, they were talking to somebody else on the other side. So you got both sides of the exact same event. And that was just fantastic.
Mark?
I thoroughly enjoyed this one, as we were talking back in the back. It was a bare bones documentary. And like Jeff said, you got to see points of view from both sides. And you got to feel and to understand where the Argentinians and the British were coming from. And you also got, with the British, it seemed like a little bit more, you got to see the down to earth, what was going through their minds as they were approaching the Falklands, which was interesting, and how they were acting as they got, as they were, the military was going there. It just stood out to me. That was really, it was damn fine art. It was a damn fine documentary.
All right, and for me, I liked to kind of piggyback off of what Jeff said. I liked the fact that they bring in the vets. I like it when documentaries do that when possible, because we might have stats and figures and the overview and quarterback, being able to armchair quarterback as we're telling the documentary. But nothing really gets the emotion of what happened. Not necessarily the stats and the figures of what happened, but the emotion at the time, like a vet telling it. There's nothing that gets anywhere near there. And I think they did relatively well on both sides. It was a little Allied heavy, but they did get both sides. But all in all, it was a good one. Me, of course, being, the pretentious person I am, I have a few nitpicks, of course. But
you? No, not you.
Can I add one thing to it before you go on, Robert?
Yep.
I did like the fact that they talked to the civilians as well. You got a civilian's point of view from both sides as well, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
The one thing I would have liked them to do is, I'll get into that in the nitpicks, but anyway. So Jeff, one negative.
One negative, the title of this is "Why Did the Falklands War Happen?" And yeah, it does go into that, but majority of the documentary is not that at all. It's the events of the war itself.
That was my first one.
Yeah, the title is a little misleading.
Yeah, like the for me, because I was actually that was gonna be my first point, was the title of it is why did the Falklands happen? They didn't go into any of that for the most part. They did a very brief overview. British believe it is their sovereign territory. Argentina believes it's their sovereign territory, and they went to war. What?
Right.
Right. So there was not a lot of the why. There was a lot of when and how, and what happened during the conflict, but there was very little why. And that to me was like, you mistitled that sucker. But yeah, I completely agree, Jeff. Mark?
I would agree with Jeff, and then my other nitpick would be that, and you mentioned it too, Robert, that the documentary leaned heavily to the British as far as jumping as interviews go. I mean, you did get a lot of good interviews from the Argentines, but the British were more of a focus than the Argentinian soldiers.
Yeah.
Or the Argentine soldiers.
Yeah.
That would be my that, and it's a little dated. I know you can't update videos. Update documentaries from the early '80s, but you could tell. I mean, if anybody truly views it for what it is, it's great, but it is dated.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of that is because there was a regime change in Argentina not too long after the war itself. So getting a hold of people that were involved might have been a little difficult.
Yeah.
I thought they did a reasonable job getting some people in, but you're right. It was more heavily oriented toward the British.
And the whole way through the documentary, like if this had been World War II and they'd been talking about the British in World War II, what main character would have been brought up at least 7 times during the documentary?
Churchill.
Yeah, Churchill.
Thatcher got a mention, and that's it. Thatcher was hands-on in the Falklands. Nothing happened in the Falklands that she didn't go do it. And she got a bare mention. And that was it. That was Thatcher's war.
Yes.
That was the Iron Lady Thatcher right there. And they didn't really cover that at all, and I think they could have. Thatcher was the where the buck stopped for the Falklands War, and she barely got a mention in this. Barely. And I think that's, I mean, they even say it in the documentary. She would override her own cabinet members if she didn't agree with what they were saying. In the meeting, not behind closed doors, in the meeting, Thatcher would go, no, we're doing this. And Thatcher ran that as her war. That was her war. She ran it. And they really didn't touch on Thatcher very much. And I think that kind of did it a disservice, because I think that if you were going, because they brought up the bad regime in Argentina more than once, they only brought up Thatcher once, and it was brief. So I don't know if it was we're saving face, we're not going into that, but all in all, I think it was they could have done a little bit more of a, demonstrating that Thatcher was hands-on. This was led from the front, as it were, as they would if they were talking about World War II, and they would bring up, this was Churchill's idea. This was Churchill. Thatcher had very much the same role in this war. Whether you're for it or against it, Thatcher was front and center.
Again, what I brought up earlier, that documentary was a product of its time as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they assumed that, considering it was a current event when the documentary was made, or almost a current event, that most of the Western world would have already known how Thatcher played a part in it. I'm not giving credence.
Thatcher lost popularity near
Yeah.
the end of her reign, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
She went up against.
I'm not giving her any credence, but
that was she went up against the other powerful woman in Britain vocally, and that didn't end well. And never go on the wrong side of Queen Elizabeth. I'm just saying.
Although she did ride this victory in the war for re-election.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
And I think the documentary touched on that right at the end.
Yeah. But again, they could have. I think they missed an opportunity there to, show that, yeah, Thatcher was running things. It wasn't the all men's club in this chance. It was, there was a woman at the helm, kind of thing. Not in a negative, just I think they missed an opportunity. But overall, I think the documentary was good for what it was. You're absolutely right, Mark. It is dated. The other thing that kind of got on my craw was the audio. Whoever edited that together, and to me, I get annoyed when volumes go up and down, up and down.
Oh, you noticed that too.
And it drives me up a wall.
Well, see, that's what I like about some documentaries. I mean, as I said, it was dated, but it also gives you that feel for it. I mean,
yeah.
Like watching
it's just, for me, it drives me nuts. I just go, no.
Yeah, I had to keep adjusting the volume up and down.
Yeah.
Because at times I couldn't hear it.
Yeah. Jeff, what are your other thoughts on the Falklands? And
well, I didn't know a whole lot about this war, and that's why I picked it. So I did get a good knowledge of what happened during the war with this. I wanted to know a little bit more of the fallout from the war. It didn't really touch a whole lot on that at the end. So I thought they missed something there. This was a documentary they filmed about 5 years after the war itself. I think they could have touched a little bit more on what happened after the war.
yeah, I think with the title that they chose, I think they could have went a lot more into why and the aftermath, and less, as much as it was nice to sit and listen to the vets, because I always enjoy that. That's always my favorite part of a documentary. I think they could have pulled away from that and really dove into the behind the scenes of that with that title. To go along with that title, I think that's where they should have went, or they should have changed the title. One of the two.
Exactly.
Mark?
Well, considering my age at the time when the Falklands happened, I really didn't pay attention to it. So, like Jeff, I learned a little bit of history that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And considering that it wasn't a war tied to the United States, it would have been a footnote to me anyway. But I learned a lot from it. I mean, I think if you did given equal time to the civilians as the military who were there on the Falklands, probably would have made it even better, in my opinion. I mean, because the little excerpts that you got from the civilians, like the woman that said she was jumping up and down, and when the British got there and they had a 50 caliber gun turned on her house, staring her down, and she immediately stopped and ducked and covered. I'm not saying that verbatim, but stuff like that, little pieces of what the people on the street saw as compared to the military, because the military is going to be edited a little bit, whereas you're getting bare bone facts from the people that were there.
So now I'm going to be a jerk, and I'm going to see how closely people watch the troop ships. What famous liner company lended one of their ships?
QE2.
The QE2.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Queen Elizabeth II.
Well, I didn't realize that the U.S. ship was in the Argentinian Navy. That
Yeah, I didn't know that either. The U.S.
that
sold
was
it to them.
and
The
immediately
one
got
that got
sunk.
torpedoed, yeah.
Yeah, when I got
Yeah.
torpedoed and sunk. Yep. But I
The
did
old
not know
World War
that.
II cruiser. Well, that's what happens, right? The end of the war, they're selling
Sell
off
off
the old
surplus.
stock and bringing in the
Yep.
new stuff, and
Mhm.
we'll sell you this gently used ship here. There you go.
Was it a
We've
cruiser or
got
was it a
better. We're
battleship?
not worried about you coming to our coastline. Like
Was the Phoenix a cruiser or a battleship? I thought it was a battleship.
cruiser.
Oh, it was? Okay.
It wasn't a full battleship.
Okay.
But the other thing too is it shows, and unfortunately, even in the modern day, the Falklands to me has always been a testament to the storyline that plays out in most modern wars. Well, even not even modern wars going back to the 60s. The bigger power goes in overconfident, gets their nose bleeding, and then goes, whoa, wait a minute. Which is what happened to the British.
Yeah.
As you know, on the way over, most of the soldiers never thought they were setting foot. It was going to be over beforehand. Just some of them thought just the mere suggestion that the Royal Navy was on its way, well, that'll make you fold up your tent and move real quick. And it didn't. But they went in very confident, overconfident. And that's happened time and time and time again after the Falklands and before the Falklands. A bigger power. I mean, the bigger power ends up winning at the end, but not the cakewalk they were expecting.
Right.
And we never seem to learn that ever. We just don't. But a lot of it has to do with the age of the gentlemen that are going over. They're 18, they're 19, they're 6'5", 6'2", and bulletproof.
Well, you also have to look at the fact that their commanders were probably still from World War II when the younger veterans from World War II who had the confidence built on, hey, the Allies can do anything, or in this case, the British Empire can do it because, like you said, the might of the British Navy waltzing over there, this should be a cakewalk, and what were they wrong?
Well, on second thought, maybe not. All right, final thoughts, and we'll get out of here. Jeff?
Well, I did enjoy this documentary. It did help me to learn more about this war. I was 11 when this happened. I didn't know anything really about it. So for that, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the having both sides presented as well as the civilian side, as Mark mentioned. However, it didn't go into really what the title was.
No.
So they could have come up with a better title or maybe delved into that a little bit more. But overall, I liked it.
And Mark?
Fine choice. It's the best documentary we've reviewed so far, in my opinion. Jeff picked a fine topic because I knew nothing about it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I agree with Jeff now that he brought that up, that it could have been a little bit more about the war itself. But other than that, it was good. It was good. I liked it.
All right. And for me, I mean, for what it was a good documentary. There wasn't anything egregious for the most part. A few nitpicks, but overall it was good. This is one of the ones where Timeline got it right, unlike the first one I made you guys watch.
The search for the submarine.
And now I'm about to scare my two panelists.
Uh-oh.
Because technically, I have the next choice. But I'm vetoed for the next 2 roundtables, our videos have already been chosen because they've been sent to me by messenger already. And you won't know for another couple of days.
He's trying to scare us. This
Do
will
I-
be my
I've
last
already got
appearance
2
on
suggestions, and I've
Roundtable.
already said
Okay.
that I
Look,
will take
can I-
suggestions over our ideas.
Can I
So we've
can I
got
have
2
can
in
I
the
ask-
can already ready to go.
Can I ask you a
this should be
question?
fun.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Do I personally know the person that chose these videos?
No, it was
Okay.
not Mary.
Okay.
I'll say that it wasn't
All right.
Mary.
All right.
But
Then
I
again, she
had
can
2 of them
surprise us.
sent to me, and I said they would make the cut, so they will be the next 2. So then I will get to pick
All
because
right.
I get vetoed for 2 weeks.
Well, that
That's
is the
gonna
way
be a
you
good
set
thing.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives me longer time to find a 5-hour documentary
No,
to make
you
you
better
watch my
not. You better
timeline.
I might conveniently get sick when that happens.
One of these
As I
times,
mentioned, this will
just
be
for
my
fun,
last appearance on the Roundtable.
just for fun, what I should do is I should make everybody watch the Titanic movie, not the one that got the Academy Awards, but the one that is kind of fictional, where they raise the Titanic
Oh.
and it gets tugboated into New York. Yeah, that movie has some really interesting scenes in it that just make you go, no. Of course, the movie automatically doesn't work because technically the Titanic's in 3 pieces on the bottom, and the movie does not account for this.
Would they raise this 2 pieces or a whole, or do they raise this a whole ship?
Yeah, it's all one. It's like, ooh, no.
It's
Titanic's
quantum.
in 3 pieces.
It's quantum.
Yeah. But so the next 2 weeks or the next 2 shows have been chosen already. I'll let you guys know shortly what they are. I've still got to find them and where we can watch them, so that's why I haven't released them, because that'll be the only thing that changes, is that if I can't find a place to watch them. But YouTube's pretty good at that. So with that, folks, as my good friend and ex-co-host used to say, thank you and good night.